My given name is Thomas LeBlanc. My Dakota name is Tatanka Ohitika, which means in Dakota Sioux, strong buffalo. It actually means brave buffalo, so much that he's strong. It was my uncle's name, and it came from my grandma's vision before he was born, and passed on to me. Probably 100 years in my family. I'm a Yeska. I'm a mixed blood, and I am 76 years old. I'm a Vietnam veteran. In Dakota, we say a Kichita. I'm also a member of the Kit Fox Society. I am a Sissetuan Wapetuan Dakota, which is a Eastern Dakota. I'm born and raised in Minnesota. I have 9 children and 50 grandchildren and 8 great-grandchildren. I live in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm executive director of an organization called Oyate Hotanen, which is a native-led arts organization here in Minnesota. We're a 501(c) and nonprofit in the state of Minnesota. I'm a past member and staff of the International Indian Treaty Council out of San Francisco. I was the director of the Minneapolis AIM chapter. I've worked in Indian affairs for over 50 years. I was a tribal councilman. I was president and chairman of Siston-Wapton Community College. I worked most of my time with Indian affairs for human rights. Our human rights are treaty rights. And that's kind of about it. I'm just an old guy. I'm a Vietnam vet, and I'm a member of Vets for Peace here in Minneapolis. It's chapter 27. And I'm also a member of a Peace Pocket organization. We have these peace pouches, which are meteorites, stars that we wear to help for peace and clear minds. And I'm a follower of the Dakota Way. I Sundance and follow our ceremonies, and because that's about it. I was born here in Minneapolis in 1946, and my mother was unwed and wouldn't tell who the father was. And so I was taken away at birth and became a ward of the state. I was in 105 different social placements until I ran away at 16 from boarding school. The welfare would not tell me what nationality I was. And when I got back from Vietnam, I found out who I was and what I was. And I met my family, and I started following in the Dakota Way as soon as I could, because I had not believed in Catholicism and a lot of the Western ways. I was a very unhappy camper in my life and childhood. So when I followed the Dakota Way and began to walk with the chanupa or the pipe and go to the ceremonies, a change happened, a spiritual change, and awakening happened from these ceremonies in these ways. So I attribute what I have to that. I think peace is something I've been involved with for a long time. I was the executive director of the Ecumenical Peace Council out in California at UC Berkeley in the 90s during the Iraq war. And I went on peace missions with the Vets for Peace and down in Nicaragua to help get mosquitoes out of prison and negotiate a peace. I went to Libya to help normalize the relationship with Gaddafi during the Reagan years when the United States was bombing and killed his daughter. I've been working for peace probably 50 years. I've stood at and prayed at over 35 different nuclear facilities. I worked and led an organization called Indigenous Uranium Forum that represented indigenous people around the world from like the Marshall Islands and New Zealand, from Dene, from New Mexico and Arizona, for Shoshone in Nevada, and for people that are affected by nuclear facilities. Almost every reservation has nuclear plants near or on them. Like here in Minnesota, we have one down at the Metawakan Reservation, Prairie Island, which is about 40 miles south of us. So I've been working for peace for a lot. When I was at the International Treaty Council, my job was research and documentation, and I worked with Japanese. There was a Japanese peace Buddhist leader named Fuji Guruji, who lived to about 96 years old. And he had a vision, and in his vision, he was told that American Indians were special people, and that his followers, he told them to come and pray and help us. So many Japanese and came and joined us and helped us in our work in the American Indian Movement and the Treaty Council. And I helped bring dancers and runners to Japan. We ran from the southern Osaka down up to Hokkaido. We helped I helped the Ainu become a non-governmental organization in the UN, fighting for their human rights. And I ran with other Indians across the United States, from Onondaga, New York to San Francisco, and from help organize and do a run from London to Moscow for peace, for land and life. And I helped narrate a movie called the Hopi Prophecy, and worked with many of the elders around the country, such as Philip Deere, Janet McLeod, the Dene from Big Mountain. I sundanced down there in Big Mountain, fighting relocation of the Dene from the Four Corners, and helped and worked with Thomas Binyaka, who was the spokesman for the Hopi Prophecy, and worked with Six Nations chiefs like Oren Lyons and the clan mothers in Six Nations, and for many of the people fighting for fishing rights like Janet McLeod and David So Happy and his family in the Columbia River. I worked with Indians and indigenous people from Alaska, trying to have their hunting and fishing and treaty rights observed. I think that peace is totally connected with the indigenous because we're so close to the earth, and our way of life is like we have a philosophy that has a binary relationship with all of life. So when you're in a relationship with the earth, and the earth is your mother, you have a little bit different relationship than if it's a commodity and a product and a place that you own and you can do in space where you can just waste and do whatever you want with it. And so you have a different relationship with it. You learn to live in a more peaceful way. I think it's also should be more like in balance. And I think this is more of an accurate term. When I was at the Treaty Council, we developed a terminology where we say sustainable development. This is a little bit more peaceful way of being. We have unsustainable development. It's actually, destruction and disregard today. And I'm really dissatisfied with the way things are going on in the world, and it's a daily situation. We're not going to have peace in the world until we have peace in ourselves. And if peace comes from us, then we can spread it to our families. And if our families have it, they can spread it to our communities, and our communities can spread it to our nations, and our nations can spread it to each other. And we have to isolate those who are of a hate. I would say spirituality to me is kind of thinking is part of spirituality. A prayer, a meditation, good deeds, and this stuff is all part of spirituality, because human beings, I think we forget that we're all spirits. We're encased in the physical body that's human. We call it two-legged, but we're just a part of the natural world, and there's natural laws. And I think we have to begin to have a more peaceful way of being. We don't have a peaceful way of being today. We're inundated and saturated and bombarded with violence and hate, and we are fed all this fear and maintain a stressful situation where we can't, and we feel we're helpless and we feel like we're hopeless. But hope it comes from your heart. Hope comes from your spirit and through your mind. And if you're going to have peace in the world, you have to have peace within yourself. And how do you get this? I think you have to have a better relationship with yourselves. We have forgotten, and we don't know how to love ourselves, truly love ourselves, not in a lustful, physical way, but in a higher way of being, that the miracle that we have of life is the most grateful and powerful thing that we have. It's a miracle that this world exists, and how it perpetuates and maintains itself is the grandest thing in the world. And yet we treat it with such disregard. We treat it as if life is not worth anything, that put some money in your pocket, or if someone says something that you don't like to you, or looks at you wrong, or is wearing the wrong clothes, or has the wrong color skin, or has a different address, and kind of maybe something you don't like, you can just disregard and do what you want with it. We haven't learned true respect of life and of each other, and that the peace that exists in this world today is really in the reserve. And I think it has to be brought out. I think until more people stand up and stand in peace and stand in a good way. In the Dakota way, when we met someone, we would open our hand and put it like this to a friend to show that we stand in friendship and in peace. And when you close your hand, you have violence, or you have disregard. You say, watch out. But if you open your hand and you stand in a good way, you stand in peace. Dakota and Sioux, it actually means the friendly people. We have a term we call Matakwe Oyase, which is loosely interpreted as we are related to all things. But it really means that we are those who live in a world that we don't know, at the mystery of life, that we try to live in a friendly and good way with, and that we are the friendly people trying to be real. We're trying to be like a relative to all that is alive, because life relates us, because that life is the same for a tree, a mosquito, a human being, that it's alive. That mountain is the same as we are. Needs to graduate from kindergarten, get it to the higher. It needs to be put into practice by more of the politicians and leaderships in the world. They talk about peace, but they don't live it. They use peace as kind of a barrier. We sit here and we live with the police killing Black people left and right, under all their disguise of legality. And there's still questions. That's not peace. Peace officers are supposed to keep peace. And if you're conscious of peace, you're not so scared of life, of dying. You begin to realize that life is really an honor, and it's something that there's no guarantee on it. And peace is less has a guarantee. Peace consciousness is something that we have to be mindful of. Peace has to be something that we are. You're not going to have peace in the world if you don't stand in peace. And I remember being taught to turn your cheek when somebody hits it and slaps you. If you've ever been slapped, it's not so easy to not slap back, or at least to respond. To be nonviolent is part of being peaceful. Doesn't mean you're weak. It actually means, I think, that one is stronger. If one can learn how to negate and neutralize the hate and the violent ways and the destructive manner, if you can be walking softly on earth and not creating as much damage and harm as other people are inflicting and helping, I think the world really needs compassion. Peace is compassion. And if you have compassion in your mind and in your heart and in your soul, you will have a peaceful life. And I firmly believe this. It's something that it's a constant situation from when you become aware till you're not thinking anymore, or you're not here on this life. If you are compassion and you live in a good way, I think that is the best and most honorable way that one can be. And that consciousness is something that you have to arrive at and maintain and keep for as long as you can. It's not a pathway that doesn't have the barriers and obstacles in front of it, because I think that's the object that is so difficult, is that there's everything in front of you to stop you from being peaceful. And you have to learn how to navigate through that and neutralize and override a lot of this stuff. And I think you will find one day that peace is the only way to be. Yeah, I'm a poet, and so I think and talk and live in poems. So I have one that I call Peace Prayer. It goes like this: "O Grandfather God, pity us, for we are a weak and lost people. We ask that you lean to hear our voices for all those seeking peace, surrounded by violence and war. We walk to the east and stand in underneath the new day sun of hope. We walk to the south where life comes from. It brings a warm rain to wash away the evil from those of violence. We go to the west, the gateway to the other side, seeking guidance and solace during our lonely journey. We go to the north where the cold wind helps us to endure the sorrow and pain of this life. We go to the center of the circle and we reach down and we caress our Mother Earth, who loves and nurtures all her children. And then we look up and we see the sun, and we know something so important and so beautiful to life. You must have been there and you must have created. And we place our prayers of peace there for you to hear and for you to collect. And we hear you when you say to us, peace must be shared, peace must be taught, and peace must be the law for us all.